Howdy, howdy, and welcome to Workshop Wednesday. It's that time again. We are actually going to go through a strategy session today. We're going to talk about the different measurement tools that you should be using in what we are calling your measurement tool inventory. My name is Chris Mercer. I do go by Mercer, and I'm the co-founder here at measurementmarketing.io, where you can see our content on such other platforms as Digital Marketer, Conversion Excel, Social Media Examiner, Seriously Simple Marketing, and others around the web. Of course, with all of these workshops, your goal is to get one new concept, one new idea. And hopefully in this particular one, some of that might be like maybe picking up a new tool that you haven't been using before, or maybe clarifying why some of these tools are used for certain things and not used for other things. We'll talk about all of that momentarily. So in fact, you know what? Let's go ahead and do that right now. Without further ado, strategy session, your measurement tool inventory. Now, of course, we're going to relate it to the 5 pillars of measurement marketing, the first pillar of which is planning. So you've got to make sure you've got a measurement marketing plan, and this inventory should be a part of that because you're going to be using some of these tools to help to make that plan a reality. The build, this is very obvious. Tools like Tag Manager and Analytics are definitely involved in building out and making sure that you are collecting all of the measurements that you need and all the different behaviors that are happening on your site. Reports, guess what? Google Data Studio comes into play there. That's a pretty big, important tool, and that can be used to help you to build reports, as well as to forecast, where maybe you even get a little more fancy and you bring in a spreadsheet or two if you would like to do that. Again, another measurement tool that you could be using for forecasting, and then ultimately optimizing, where you run paid traffic through everything or run traffic through what you thought was going to happen, measure it against your forecast, and that will tell you where you're hitting the mark and where you're not. That brings it all together. That tells you what actions you need to take, or at least where you need to focus. So that's how the whole 5 pillars of measurement marketing work to help you to improve your own results. Now let's go ahead and start with these different tools. Of course, we're going to go ahead and pop right in. I'm going to start with the biggest, the baddest, the one that hopefully you are all using at this point, which is Google Analytics. Now, there are a lot of different tools that you can use for measurement. So we're going to cover the main ones that are here, and we'll talk about some of the auxiliary ones as well. But really, this is used from your perspective. I want you looking at this going, okay, am I using this tool in the way that it was intended? Am I getting the most that I can out of this tool? With all of these that we're going to cover, we want to ask that question. So with analytics, when you're thinking about, okay, hopefully you're using it, number one. Number two, you have to, not an option. You have to set this thing up. You have to customize it for your own usage, which means setting up things like cross-domain tracking, setting up things like traffic tags and using UTMs to tag all your different traffic sources, setting up goals, setting up e-commerce, so that's reporting properly. This tool must be set up. So not only is this the tool that you use to really store all of the behaviors, that's really what it's good for. It's good for storing the behaviors that are happening on your site. So when somebody sees a page view, Analytics stores that page view. When somebody purchases something, Analytics stores that purchase. And it associates it to the different traffic sources so that you can come back to Analytics and get some really decent answers, really useful answers, what we call the useful truth. So you want to use Analytics for that purpose, but it has to be set up. So a much bigger topic than we have for today's workshop on how to set that up, but just know that if you have just put this tool on your pages and you really haven't done anything to enhance its function with tagging, e-commerce setup, goal setup, or anything like that, you're really missing out on what this tool can offer you. So make sure you take a look at that. But again, this is the tool that you would want to use to store information. And that's really what the inventory is about, was what tool am I using to actually store details, storing the behaviors of what's going on, right down to the events, right? So you have the ability to customize in the behavior section here of Analytics. You have the ability to customize events. So you've got to make sure that you're taking advantage of that, because these are 0 by default. There are no events that happen by default. You have to customize that stuff. And specific behaviors like YouTube video interactions, or any video interaction for that matter, scrolling, all that sort of stuff, button clicks on certain buttons, the amount of time on a certain page or something like that. Very specific behaviors you can track and store in Google Analytics. And that's what it's for. So make sure you're using something to store your details. Now you have other options. You have platforms like Pickwick or Clicky. There are other paid platforms like Adobe Analytics that you could use to store information. But at the end of the day, Google Analytics is a great, fantastic, powerful solution that is free for the majority of us out there. So take advantage of that. The only thing is not just popping it on your pages. You've got to make sure that you set it up, and it does take time. There is no way around that. And don't trick yourself into thinking, oh, I can just throw in Analytics and then get some usefulness from it. Don't think like that. Set it up. Take some time to understand how the tool works, and making sure that that when you do that, you will actually have all of these behaviors stored properly, because otherwise it's like garbage in, garbage out. You'll have a bunch of data in there, but you really won't have anything useful. And so it's hard to get any useful answers answered for any questions actually answered in a useful way. So, but when you set it up properly and you understand how it works and how you're tagging your traffic and all that sort of stuff coming in, then you've got a much better understanding. So just that's what we're going to talk about when it comes to analytics, is where do you store all of this data? And again, Google Analytics, great for that. Just make sure you set it up. Now, in terms of collecting the data, how does Google Analytics actually get its information? Now, Google Analytics can do this by itself. It has the ability to collect, and that's really what the script is all about. So I'm just going to go real quickly back here. Tracking info, and then we'll show you the tracking code here. So this is just the script that you would put on your pages, and this script collects information for Google Analytics, but it's a very general sort of collection script. It doesn't do a whole lot of specific collection of behaviors. It's not aware of, for example, scrolling or event tracking of some sort, maybe specific events like YouTube video plays or something like that. It doesn't, on its own, by itself, this doesn't really do anything like that. So instead, and this is where we prefer, instead of using this script to basically enable Google Analytics to collect its own data, we don't use Google Analytics to collect any data at all. We use Google Analytics to store the data, right? There's a big difference. Google Analytics stores the data, but does not collect the data. So all the data is stored here in these different reports. But how does it collect? Well, it collects using Tag Manager. And that's the second tool. So we've got Google Tag Manager for our measurement, and Tag Manager is exceptional, purpose-built, in fact, to be able to be witness to all the different behaviors that are happening on your site. And then based on those different behaviors, it sends information to different platforms, for example, Google Analytics. So if we go into our tag section here in Tag Manager, and again, this is not a tour or a beginner's guide or anything to Google Tag Manager. I just want you aware of how to use this tool and why you should be using this tool. But you can see down here, we've got all these different analytics functions that are going into Google Analytics because of Tag Manager. We've told Tag Manager to alert Google Analytics when somebody's on a page or when they buy something, various stages of a pipeline from a customer standpoint, when they become a lead, when they engage with a video or engage with our scrolling, right? So you've got all these different events that are coming through. Now, at the same time that we're telling Analytics, we're also telling Facebook. We have details going into Facebook so that Facebook is able to help us to target better with a certain audience and things like that, because we're training Facebook on how to do this stuff. So, and again, it can be used for countless other things in terms of scripts. So I've got different scripts of different tools that we use that are being controlled by Tag Manager. Tag Manager is putting on, for example, the PayPal script or the Infusionsoft script. It puts those on the pages so that we don't have to directly put those on the pages. So Tag Manager, in one place, I have this measurement tool in one place that is controlling all of the different things that are happening when it comes to from a measurement perspective for us. So what platforms get told what and when happens in Google Tag Manager. And then the different platforms that are even activated are Tag Manager. So these are tools in themselves. So, the Infusionsoft that we use for our CRM, we've got Hotjar, which you could use for click maps and heat maps and things like that as a tool. If you want to get a little more visual, that's a great one to use. Funnelytics is a little bit more for visual mapping of funnels. You could also use Geru, which is a fantastic program, Geru, that has recently been revised and again, is fantastic. So take a look at that one for funnel mapping. VidPulse is great for tracking video interactions of what's going on and measuring the different videos that are playing. So VidPulse is a great tool for that. PayPal, of course, for collecting payments. So you've got all of these different things that are coming through here that you can use that are other tools that are basically controlled by Tag Manager. Everything's in Tag Manager's hands. So you've got one source of one tool that is in control of all the different behaviors that are happening on your site and then taking action based on those different behaviors. So that's what Tag Manager is really good. Tag Manager is the collector. So Tag Manager is sitting there, it's collecting all these different behaviors. And then again, based on what you train it, how you set it up, it will then store the information in Google Analytics or alert Facebook that a purchase just happened or tell PayPal that they've just converted or something like that, right? So you have all of these different things that are available to you within Tag Manager. Tag Manager is your controller. Tag Manager is that one central place that controls all of your measurement. And if you need to set up a more specific behavior tracking measurement of some sort, that you do it in Tag Manager. That's what it's there for. So Tag Manager, the second tool. So basically Tag Manager and kind of putting how these work. Like, Tag Manager doesn't have any reports. There's no goals to set up. There's none of that stuff. But all the details that are being collected and sent, in this case, to Google Analytics right? Now you could set up goals for different things that Tag Manager is sending into Google Analytics, like an event goal or something like that. So that's how these two platforms come together. Tag Manager collects the information, does not store it though, just collects it, and then sends it to the platform of your choosing, which in this case, again, could be something like Google Analytics, so that you can pull up a source medium report and take a look at what traffic sources are pulling in traffic and what the results of those traffic sources are, etc. So this is how these two pieces are starting to come together. We've got analytics where we're storing information. How does it get the information in the first place? Well, it gets it from a Tag Manager. So Tag Manager sends those details to analytics, and at the same time, again, can also send them to Facebook and other platforms as well. So it's not just Google Analytics. It's everything, which is what I love. It's a really good central place to get all the control, right, from your measurement. One place it's doing everything. It's one source of truth for all of the different platforms, all coming from Tag Manager. So that's why we use Tag Manager. Now, when it comes to reports, so you've got Tag Manager collecting information, it pushes it into Google Analytics, and yeah, the source media report is a fantastic report, but there's a lot of reports in analytics that are just too much or have too much information, more than you actually need, and it's hard to get answers quickly. So you build specific dashboards. Well, that's where things like Data Studio come in, right? Data Studio can help you to build dashboards kind of look like this, right? And that might answer specific questions that you have. So whether that's with YouTube, you've got reports that can be used for Search Console that can come in for Google Search, ads, Google Ads. There's all sorts of built-in things that you can use to pull information in. You can use community connectors to pull in like Facebook ad spend and that sort of thing. You can connect it to Google Sheets and pull in details from a Google Sheet. And of course, you can connect it into your analytics. So you've got all these different templates that are available just to get started. And of course, you can entirely customize your own, which is typically what we end up doing for tracking of funnels and customer journeys. And again, designed reports that are designed to answer specific questions. So you have a question of like how my funnel is working or where the different stages of engagement are for my customers. And you would build a dashboard in Data Studio to actually show you that. So that's what it's there for. So super, super important tool. And this is starting hopefully to come together. We've got our third piece here, our third tool in our inventory. So we've got Tag Manager collects the information. Tag Manager then sends it to something like Google Analytics to store the information. Data Studio connects into Google Analytics to build reports that answer specific questions so that you don't have to spend your time diving into analytics and trying to hunt for a needle in a haystack. When it comes to trying to find your answers, you just go to your dashboard that you've created to help you get those answers. So that's how that works. And that's, again, the third piece in our measurement tool. So dashboards for reports. Now, in the dashboard itself, you can also put in some forecasts. You could put in some, here's what I thought was going to happen versus what actually happened, to really start to help you, again, tying it back to those pillars of measurement marketing that we talk about. When you've got your reports done, you want to start to forecast what the future is going to look like, and you measure against your forecasts to see kind of where you need to optimize, and your reports can build those in too. Now, of course, you've got our buddy spreadsheets. I've got a nice little blank one here, but you can make these infinitely complicated. But these are not for everybody because you kind of do need to be comfortable with spreadsheets in order to use them. And there's a lot of people who just aren't. And if that's not you, totally fine. You don't have to have spreadsheets, but they are nice to have. They are something that if you have the resources, even if it's not for yourself, but somebody in your team maybe can help you with this, then they can build the heavy lifting, anything that needs a lot of calculation. Technically, Data Studio can do a lot of calculation on its own. It's just that as of right now, it is kind of slow. So it can take minutes sometimes for a report to load because of all the calculations that are going on, if that's what you're using it for. But if you're using Google Data Studio to just display data, right? So it's not thinking about and calculating it and everything, but it's just displaying the data. It's actually pretty quick. So what you might do is you might say, well, hey, we've got a ton of calculations. We're going to use a spreadsheet to do all those calculations, like my conversion rates and my average order values and whatever else that you're tracking. And then you hook the sheet itself into Data Studio. So you can start seeing this tool, Analytics, again, to review, stores the information. How does it get there? Tag Manager is what is collecting and sending the information to the platform. Reports are done by Data Studio, but heavy lifting when it comes to calculations are done by spreadsheets. So you've got these four main tools that can be there to help you get all your measurements intact. And I think other than something like Hotjar or True Conversion, which is another tool that does this, where you have the heat maps and the scroll maps and you've got a visual element. In fact, I'll just show you here. We'll go to their True Conversion page here so you can see it. Believe that's it. So in True Conversion, again, heat maps, let's see if we can get some visuals. You've got this. You've got visual analytics. And this is sometimes really good, especially if you were more of a visual person. You want to see like, hey, what part of the page are they really paying attention to? And you don't want to see it in a graph or a bar chart. You want to see it as sort of as what they call a heat map here or a click map. You can see what's really where people are actually spending their time. You can see it in screen recordings. It does that. Again, True Conversion and Hotjar both. Both are great tools for this. But you can see drop-off. It actually has ability to build out funnels. So you can see that too. How your fields are being filled out. So you have that little microsurvey. So there's lots of different things that you can do with tools like this, again, for seeing essentially the same thing you could get from analytics and building your own dashboard, but it sort of defaults it to this very highly visual way, which you really can't do with something like Data Studio, at least not yet. So you've got to have this information on a tool like a Hotjar or True Conversion in order to get something visual that looks like this. But that is yet another tool. Some of these visual element tools could be really, really useful in your own measurement marketing inventory. So at that point, we've kind of got the major stuff. The only other one that I want to mention, which again is kind of still the new kid on the block, is Facebook Analytics. Now, I brought up a specific report because I think Facebook Analytics at this point in the game is really good at a couple of things. But otherwise, I spend a lot of my time in analytics and building Data Studio reports to get my answers. But when it comes to funnels, Facebook Analytics is really good about building funnels kind of on the fly. Google Analytics isn't so much great at that because you have to, once you build a funnel, then you got to wait to collect data a lot of times, especially if you're using the funnel visualization report that they have. But Facebook Analytics, you can build a funnel and then run it and then adjust it and change it, and it automatically builds over and over again. You can save the funnel and have a whole bunch of different funnels that will go through the steps. You can sort them by whatever you want to sort them by, UTM or traffic source, whatever, and of course load up the time, date range, and everything. So you can really get this nice visual feel for how your funnel's working, as well as the table if numbers are more your thing. But it is really, really good at funnels. So if you have not yet played with Facebook Analytics, if you haven't gone back there, and again, I wouldn't say this is a make or break. This is just another nice to have. Like Facebook Analytics does a really good job of funnels and being able for you to track anything that you're setting. Now, remember, it is not connected to Google Analytics. It's completely separate. So it has to have its own information, just like Google Analytics has its own information, right? Tag Manager sends the information to Google Analytics. You have to send the information to Facebook Analytics. But guess what does that? Tag Manager does that because Tag Manager has the information. So it takes it, it collects the information, and it sends it to Google Analytics for storage. At the same time, we just duplicate it and have it sent to Facebook Analytics for storage. So that way I can go back to two different platforms, Facebook Analytics and Google Analytics, and use them both for what they're really, really good at. So Analytics, Google Analytics I would use for Data Studio reports and some really in-depth analysis. And Facebook Analytics, I can come in and build funnels really quickly and get some answers along those lines. The other thing that Facebook is also very good at is cohort reports. So creating cohort reports, which again, a lot more advanced than what we have time to talk about today. But if you need that functionality and you don't want to use a spreadsheet for it, that's the other way to do it, would be with a spreadsheet. But Facebook might be the best thing for you to go into and take a look at. So if that is your jam, otherwise, again, building out funnels. Okay. So with that, let's go ahead and bring it to a close. What was your one thing? What was your one new idea that you got from this? Maybe it was just how these different pieces, maybe you are using all these, but not quite have them as siloed in your brain as far as which tool does what really well. Like Tag Manager doesn't store anything. It doesn't calculate anything. It doesn't run reports. It doesn't tell you what to do next, right? It just collects the details and then passes them on to the next step. So what is the next step? That's where analytics comes in, whether it's Google Analytics or Facebook Analytics or a myriad of other platforms that you can send data to. And those platforms are there to store the information. So that's where they store the information. And yes, they do have some built-in reports where you can start bidding some reports out. But if you really want to customize stuff and make really useful reports, use something like a Google Data Studio, a dashboarding program where you actually get these reports, these dashboards that are created to give you very specific answers. And so instead of using analytics for reporting, you use something like Data Studio for reports. And then ultimately, if you have a lot of really heavy, easy for me to say here, a lot of heavy, complicated math that you're doing in terms of conversions and calculations and everything else that you've got going on, maybe you move into a Google Sheet and you're doing something, or an Excel spreadsheet, right? A spreadsheet. And so those spreadsheet details can then, the results of the spreadsheet, because the spreadsheet does the math part really well, it does the calculations really well. Maybe at that point you pull those back into Data Studio for display. right? So that you can actually get your answers. So these tools kind of mishmash together. And then, of course, you've got things like Google Analytics does immensely detailed recording of all of the different behaviors that are happening on your site, again, by what it's getting through Tag Manager. And it stores a ton of stuff. And it's kind of easy to find some answers once you know what you're looking for. Facebook Analytics does the same thing. Not as easy to find some of these answers, but Facebook Analytics does funnels really, really well. And you can see these funnel paths and you can build them out and you can play with funnels to your heart's content and save them and come back to them and, ask a bunch of questions about them and get some really interesting insights around funnels because it does that so well. Google Analytics doesn't really do that so well, but it does other things like your source media reports and things along those lines. To get information. So this isn't just going to be now that you know this, bam, you're an expert in all these tools. It's not that. Remember, you have to set them up. You have to customize them. You have to get through the wobble factor. So just like when you're riding a bike and you take off those training wheels at first, you're going to wobble. That's natural. It's because you're trying to figure out the balance. It's uncomfortable and it's unknown. You got to get a feel for it. And then eventually you start riding a bike much, much better after a little bit of practice. It's the same thing with these tools. If you are not using them, and again, it doesn't have to be you if you're more on the strategy end of things, but making sure your team is using them, that your company is using them so that you get the most from them. There will be a wobble factor. You're not going to knock it out of the park right away in most cases. But once you get through that wobble factor, you will find that your measurements are able to go to an entirely new level. And when your measurements are able to do that in your own marketing, you can ask better, more intelligent questions around what's working and what's not. And that's what leads to better, more intelligent actions to improve your marketing results. So with all of that, hopefully one of those was your one new idea. Of course, if you are looking for a way to know your numbers, Measurement Marketing Academy, definitely recommend that. It is measure.tips/start. And the academy itself is our high level. It is made for teams. So it's got multiple seats back there. So you can join it as a company and then assign some seats to the strategists of the team, the implementers of the team, and be a vendor that needs access to some information, wants to learn about this stuff. Everything's back there. Tag Manager, analytics, how to set it up, what to set up. You also have coaching that's available to you every single week. We've got live group coaching where you can jump on a call and just sort of chat stuff out and share your screen and really get the help you need to get sort of unstuck and moving on. Also, instructors are standing by there for any questions that you have. So lots of times, even if you can't join the live coaching, you'll create a video or a screenshot and send it into the instructors, and they can send back screenshots and videos of their own to help you get unstuck and on the way. So it is a fantastic program. So definitely check it out. Measure.tips/start for the Measurement Marketing Academy. And of course, if you're already a member of the Academy, thank you. And every Wednesday, 3:30 p.m. Eastern, that is when we have office hours. So that is just for our Academy members. The office hours, you get the links already in. You should already have them at this point for this week. So go ahead and check your email, the Facebook group, or of course, in the Academy itself, and we'll join the live Q&A. Next week's Workshop Wednesday topic is another strategy session. We happen to have 5 Wednesdays this month, so we're going to do another strategy session, building an optimization plan. So we're going to talk about a split testing and optimizing plan. We'll give you a little tool that you can use as well and show you that to help you keep things organized and come up with a little strategy so that you can optimize the results that you're getting on your sites. And of course, if you are not yet a part of Workshop Wednesday, be sure to join that. Workshop Wednesday, some of these we do make public and others we do not. They are only available to those who are on the Workshop Wednesday list. It is currently free to join that list, so take advantage. Measure.tips/WW, and then every week you'll just get notified as to what the topic is for that week. And of course, if you can't join, watch it live or whatever immediately, that's not a big deal. You just can pop on, watch the replays for an entire week. You'll have access to that. So completely free of charge at this point in time. So make sure measure.tips/WW to join Workshop Wednesday and get every single workshop that we have. All right, that brings us to a close. This has been Strategy Session, your measurement tool inventory. Thanks again for watching this workshop, and we will see you on the next one. Take care.